All right. Happy Friday, everyone. I know it's a big weekend coming up with Alabama, Texas A&M in Tuscaloosa, Bryant-Denny Stadium. A lot of excitement. Top 25 matchup. Number 1 Alabama, number 22 Texas A&M. So a lot of excitement. A lot of top kids from around the state of Alabama, a lot of top kids from the state of Texas. I mean, we've got official visitors coming into town, so it's going to be a big recruiting weekend down in T-Town. What I want to hit on first, though, big news out of this week was Dax Hill, the 5-star safety out of Oklahoma, announced his commitment to Michigan over Alabama. And I've seen some different reports that are out there that how big of a loss it was for Alabama to miss out on Dax Hill. Listen, Dax was certainly a big target for Alabama. There's no doubt about it. He's a guy that is the number 1 safety in the country. Alabama could have definitely used him in the future, but at the same time, Alabama has 3 safety commitments right now. Dax was one of those guys who, we've seen this a lot. When Alabama starts, getting a lot of kids at one position and they fill up, maybe they'll take an elite player. Maybe they'll take a special talent at that position. Well, Dax was one of those players that was a special talent that they were still going to take. But at the same time, as of right now, they have 3 safeties who are currently committed in the recruiting class. You look at if you go and look at the Rivals.com list, BamaInsider.com, Alabama Commitment Board. You've got 3 defensive backs who are committed, but you wouldn't know if you were just a casual fan. You didn't pay much attention to recruiting. You wouldn't know they were 3 safeties, because you have DeMarco Hellams, who's listed as an athlete. 6'1", about over 200 pounds. He was recruited specifically at the safety position. You have Christian Williams out of Daphne. I can't remember if he's listed as a safety or a corner on the website, but I do think he's listed as a safety. He's planning on playing safety, and then you also have Brandon Turnage, a big-time defensive back out of Oxford, Mississippi, who's 6'1", almost 200 pounds. He's listed as a corner, but Alabama recruited him as a safety. So those are 3 safety commitments in Alabama's 2019 class. So missing out on Dax Hill, like I said, they would have loved to have him. He's a big-time talent, but they've already kind of met their needs at the safety position, and they're not even going to recruit another safety. I mean, once Dax announced he was going to Michigan, I mean, that was kind of it. I mean, Alabama's not even looking at another safety in this year's recruiting class. There are some defensive backs that they're recruiting, some cornerbacks like Nola Pola Gates, Akeem Dent, those type of guys, but no really just true safeties that they're going after, because they feel like they've already filled their needs at that position. All right. Why are we here today? We are here today to talk about the big weekend down in Tuscaloosa. Now, I think we need to start off first talking about the official visitors. Alabama's going to have 3 official visitors on campus this weekend. Let's start with Kayvon Thibodeaux, the 5-star defensive end, outside linebacker, but being recruited mainly as an outside linebacker, edge rusher by Alabama. This is going to be his 3rd trip to Tuscaloosa this year. He made a few trips down to Alabama. He was at Alabama during the spring. He returned during the summer, and then and now he's coming back for his official visit. Now, he named Alabama his favorite after that first trip to Tuscaloosa back in the spring, and it almost seemed like he was about to announce a commitment shortly after that trip. Well, he decided to hold off. He went to Florida State, and Florida State really made a big-time move for him, and he really liked Florida State a lot. He's taken a few other visits. Now, he's already taken his official to Florida State, took that official early on in the season when Florida State played Virginia Tech, and now he's coming to Tuscaloosa for this official visit. Big visit, like I said. Tosh Lapoy, Jeff Banks have been recruiting him. They've got a great relationship with him, and it's going to be a big weekend for him. So we'll kind of figure out where he stands after this weekend. But we actually didn't think he was going to make it, because he has a road game tonight. It's a few hours away, but he's still coming in, and he should be arriving tomorrow morning sometime. Another official visitor this weekend, Wan'Dale Robinson, 4-star wide receiver out of Kentucky. Wan'Dale having a spectacular senior season. I mean, I think he's already, I think in about 4 games, he has close to about 1,200 yards, all-purpose yards. I mean, he is just a fantastic athlete. We saw him at the at Alabama's camp during the summer. He earned an offer from Alabama at that camp. And ever since then, Alabama's been heavily recruiting him. Coach Dan Enos, Coach Josh Gaddis have been staying in regular contact with him. But right now, it's kind of a little tricky to figure out what's going on at the wide receiver position. We've said for a while that Alabama's looking to get probably 2 receivers in this class. Now, they got a commitment from John Mechie out of the Petty School in New Jersey back during the summer. So that's one commitment. Where do you get your second commitment from? Well, Wan'Dale Robinson, been one of those guys that they like a lot. At the same time, he's only about 5'9", and Alabama's been, one of their biggest things this year. They were really wanting to go after a bigger receiver because when they missed out on Justin Ross last year on National Signing Day, I think that was one of their biggest things, was trying to get a big receiver this year, a 6'3", 6'4" type guy, and they've been looking. I mean, there's no doubt they've been looking around. They've been trying to find the best possible scenario, and there just hasn't been a lot of really big time targets for them this year. They've had some guys that they've offered, but guys who are kind of out of the region that they really didn't have much of a chance with, guys who just never really considered Alabama. But George Pickens, the 5-star wide receiver out of Hoover, who's committed to Auburn. I mean, that's still a possibility. I mean, we're probably going to see him in Tuscaloosa this weekend. We're probably going to see him in Tuscaloosa for an official visit down the road. So that's a big receiver, a 6'4" type guy that that they would love to add if they could flip him down the road. But Wan'Dale Robinson, certainly a special talent. Reminds me a lot of Jalen Waddle. A lot of similar characteristics, probably a little bit shorter than Waddle is, but definitely an exciting football player. So he'll be here this weekend with both of his parents. He's really looking forward to making that trip to Tuscaloosa and spending some time. Now, he does want to make a decision here pretty soon. He went to Nebraska for an official visit a few weeks ago, and I think he's getting pretty close to making that announcement. So I think he'll kind of figure out where things stand with Alabama this weekend, and then go from there and possibly make a decision within the next week or two. The third official visitor this weekend is Marcus Banks. Kind of a random official visitor, in my opinion. He's an LSU commitment. He's out of Spring, Texas. He had been showing interest in Alabama back in the spring, and there was a lot of talk about Alabama being in his top 4. But then he ends up committing to LSU pretty early in the summer, and didn't really hear anything else about him. And then all of a sudden he sets an official visit to Alabama. Just from my perspective, I'm looking at it as it's just a visit. I think he's just going to come in, have a good time, and I don't think there's going to be much more to that. I mean, I think that he's probably has maintain a relationship with the coaching staff. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure they're still recruiting him, but I just don't see him as a possible flip option for Alabama. Of course, you never know. You never know what may happen this weekend. So we'll see how the weekend goes. Touch base with him and see what's going on. Before I get to the rest of the official or the unofficial visitors, we got a lot of questions coming in, so I do want to answer some of your questions that are coming in. Do I think Alabama will flip Pickens? George Pickens, 5-star wide receiver out of Hoover, had a chance to see him a few weeks ago. Really was impressed with him as an athlete. I mean, I think he's definitely one of the top overall wide receivers in the country. As I just mentioned, Alabama certainly wants to get a bigger receiver, and he would certainly fit that mold. We'll see what happens. I certainly think that Alabama's in the running for him. He's an in-state kid, only about 40 minutes away from Tuscaloosa. So, I definitely think that Alabama's in the running for him, and we'll see what happens down the road. Let me see here. I'm going to answer a couple more. If Bama misses on inside linebacker Dean and Henry, who is the next guy on the Bama board? unfortunately for Alabama, the next guys are guys who are committed elsewhere. You've got Tresman Marshall, who's committed to Georgia. Christian Harris committed to Texas A&M, and you also have Ryan Davis, who's committed to Georgia. So those are guys who Alabama's still recruiting, that are still planning on taking visits to Tuscaloosa. So we'll probably see them over the course of the next few months in Tuscaloosa. But I think the main focus is guys like Nakobe Dean and Henry To'oTo'o. Those are certainly two elite guys that they really want to add in this year's class, and I think they've got a good chance to get at least one of them. Let's see. I'm gonna answer just one or two more questions, and then we'll get back to the visitor list. Let's see. Losing that safety was tough. Who might be the next best target for them? Like I mentioned earlier in the show, Alabama's not really going to go after another safety. They have three guys who are committed. So they have three safeties committed. Dax Hill was just a special talent that they were still going to take, regardless of needs at the position. So we won't see Alabama go after another safety in this year's class. My thoughts on Ishmael Sopsher, 5-star defensive lineman Ishmael Sopsher from Louisiana. Kind of surprised he's not on the visitors list this weekend. And we have some guys on our site who are adamant that he is going to Alabama. I'm not there yet. I still think that that LSU is the team to beat. He's just been down to Baton Rouge a lot more than he has been down to Tuscaloosa. He hasn't been to Tuscaloosa since the spring. Could have made a few trips during the summer, never did. Thought that he was going to be coming this weekend because Alabama and Texas A&M are two of his top 4 schools right now. So kind of surprised he's not coming into town for this game. His brother, who's a junior college defensive lineman, was offered by LSU a couple months ago. So, I certainly think that they are the team to beat until he makes the trip back to Alabama. So, we'll see what happens there. But I definitely think that I definitely think that LSU is the team to beat for him. So let's jump back into it. Let's talk about these visitors this weekend. We went over the official visitors, so obviously going to be a big weekend for those guys. But we're also going to see some big name unofficial visitors. Let's start off Clay Webb, the number 2 overall player in the state of Alabama, behind George Pickens. He's also a 5-star recruit, 5-star center. Even though he doesn't want to play center. I mean, you ask Clay, and he's very strongly against playing center in college, but he's ranked that way because the guys at Rivals.com, and I think a lot of people think that's probably his best position for the future. I think he's got a good chance to. I think he could be an All-American center at the college level. Of course, he could be an All-American guard as well, but I certainly look at him as more of a center than a guard. But he's very strongly against playing that. So, all these college coaches are saying, all right, well, whatever you want to play, we're going to let you play it. He's going to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend. It's going to be his second visit to Alabama this fall already. He was at the game, at the Arkansas State game earlier this year. So getting him back on campus twice already is huge for Alabama. I think that's a good thing for them, because I think over the last few months, I think Georgia has really made a very strong run at him and could have even overtaken Alabama for the lead. But I think over the course of the next few months, we're going to see it flip-flop back and forth over the all the way up until he makes that decision in December. So we'll keep an eye on him, see how that visit goes this weekend. But always good to get him back on campus. Nakobe Dean, number 1 inside linebacker in the country, very important target for Alabama this year. Huge visit for him coming into town. Now, Nakobe's already taken his official visit to Alabama, so we've been saying that Alabama was probably going to need him to get him back on campus a few more times this fall, because he was still going to be taking those official visits to to Florida State and to LSU and to Georgia. Those visits are still still coming up in the next few months. And Alabama just needed to get him back on campus for some big games. So getting him back on campus for a big game like Texas A&M, so he can experience that atmosphere, huge for them. There are going to be some elite juniors on campus this weekend. McKinley Jackson, 5-star defensive tackle out of George County High School in Mississippi. Mississippi certainly producing some great defensive linemen, and this guy, he certainly might be the best in the last several years. And he's a special talent. Reminds me a lot of Deron Payne. Like I said, just a junior. He's one of the top 10 overall players in the 2020 class. So he's going to be on campus, and he's very high on Alabama. He's a former LSU commitment, but visited Alabama during the spring, and a lot of people think Alabama's the team to beat for him. Alabama's playing against a team from Texas, so we're going to see a couple Texas kids. I mentioned Marcus Banks earlier, who's coming into town. Another big target that's going to be in town is Dwight McGlover. He's a Rivals 100 safety and cornerback in the 2020 class. We actually saw him camp in Alabama back during the summer, and just had a great overall experience. I mean, he was really high on Alabama after that camp trip back in June, and he said a lot of things that actually after that visit that actually made me think that he was on the verge of committing to Alabama. Now that's a lot of kids are very high on programs when they come off a visit, maybe even a first time visit, and they get back home, they say, okay, let's sit back down a little bit. Let's wait a little while and make the right decision for us. So, but he's coming back in town, so I think that's huge for Alabama. Another big target coming into town, Reggie Grimes, Rivals 100 athlete out of Tennessee. His father, Reggie Grimes, played at Alabama. Was on that, I think it was the 1999 SEC championship team, I believe so. I think he ran a touchdown back in that game, if I can remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of juniors on campus. We're going to see we'll see a few sophomores as well. So there's going to be a lot of really good talent. Now there are going to be a few kids who are committed elsewhere. We've mentioned Marcus Banks a few times now, but him being an LSU commitment, he'll be on campus. We will probably see George Pickens on campus. The Auburn commitment, 5-star wide receiver out of Hoover, who we've mentioned a lot already on here today. Jaron Handy has still been recruited by Alabama, despite his commitment to Auburn, big defensive lineman out of Hattiesburg. We should see him on campus. Now, there have been a few other trips that he was scheduled to make to Alabama, but just one reason or another didn't make the trip. So, we'll keep an eye on and see if he ends up making this trip or not. And then another big target, Jerrion Ely, 4-star running back out of Jackson, Mississippi. He's committed to Ole Miss. Alabama's still looking for that one more running back in this class. Now, obviously, a lot of people assume that it's going to be Trey Sanders, 5-star running back out of IMG Academy. But you just never know with Trey. He keeps on taking his time with everything, and even though a lot of people assume he's a silent commitment, he still hasn't announced anything. And a lot of people have been saying he's been a silent commitment since the summer. Most of the time, when you're a silent commitment, you announce within a few weeks. I don't really like those silent commitments who are silent, but then they wait it all out. They wait all the way until signing day. They're a silent commitment for 6 months. Let me tell you something. Kids are not silent commitments for 6 months. They are, they may be telling coaches that they're coming, but at the same time, they're telling other schools what they want to hear. They're going on visits. Trey just got back from an official visit to Texas. He's still going to take other visits. When you're doing, that kind of stuff, you're not a silent commitment. So, people can talk about kids being silent commitments all they want, but in my opinion, the only kids who are silent commitments are kids who commit to a program, and then within a week or two, they've announced their decision, because the reason they're silent is because they want to set up their announcement. They want to have some sort of video production. They want to do some sort of announcement at their high school or something like that. But they're done taking visits. They're not talking to any other schools. They are 100% on board with that school. So, I hate looking at that crap. When people always tell me, "Oh, this kid's a silent commitment." No, he's not. All right. Now that I've gone off on that tangent, let's look at some other questions here because we've gone over the kids who are coming into town for the weekend. And if you missed anything, please go ahead and look back on it. But we have the complete list of prospects of the top kids who are coming into town. Now we'll probably see a lot more kids on campus, but in terms of kids who are Alabama caliber, I have all that on the Bama Insider recruiting board. You can go on there, check it out, and I certainly encourage you to do that. Let's see. Is Javaris Johnson moving up on Alabama's recruiting board? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, he's an Auburn commitment, having a good year for Hewitt Trustful. But as of right now, I think Alabama's focus is on some other guys at his position. So I don't really see him moving up the list. He is going to be on campus this weekend, but so is so are a lot of his teammates. I think it's just him coming on campus and having a good time. Rashad Chaney is wanting to be in this class. Is Rashad Chaney wanting to be in this class? I'm sure he is. He's one of those kids that committed to Alabama during the spring and really kind of didn't really do that well at Alabama's camp, and then had kind of an okay performance at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge. I don't think Alabama's been in contact with him in a while. So is he still committed? I don't know. I know that he did have on his Twitter handle Alabama commitment for a very long time, and then all of a sudden he took that off. So he hasn't really said one way or the other. He hasn't publicly decommitted, but I certainly don't expect him to be in Alabama's class right now. Do I think Bama's going to get some commitments this weekend? Everyone always asks me that, especially on these big weekends, and you never know. You never know if a kid is so overwhelmed by everything that he just falls in love and wants to just go ahead and commit. I mean, that happens. But in terms of kids who are scheduled to announce, there are no kids who are scheduled to announce. Now, I'm looking at a guy like Kayvon Thibodeaux, who's he's already taken his official visit to Florida State. He's coming in for Alabama. Will he wait it out, or will he potentially make a commitment soon? Now, we saw, obviously 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, we saw Dax Hill take his official visit to Michigan and then come right back off that trip and announce his commitment to Michigan. So, we could see something like that. So, obviously, we'll keep our eyes open for anything that may happen, and here we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, it's always a possibility, but nobody that I'm just like, yeah, this guy's most likely going to commit this weekend. Another question: what D lineman do you think we end up getting besides the ones that we already have committed? That's probably the one position that is probably the most up in the air, because there's so many defensive linemen that are still out there that Alabama's in the running for, and they're going to have a lot of guys visit over the course of the next few months. And I've been told for a little while that Alabama would really like to get a junior college defensive lineman. They'd like to get one more high school defensive lineman. They'd like to get one JUCO. And depending on what happens, depending on who's still out there, if there's like some elite guy that's a must get that wants to come to Alabama, around signing day, Alabama's going to say, okay, we'll fit you in here somehow. But, they definitely want to get at least one more high school D lineman and one more JUCO D lineman. A name to keep an eye on is Chester Graves. He's a JUCO defensive lineman that kind of is starting to become an Alabama prospect. He doesn't have an offer yet, but Alabama's looking at him probably a few more weeks before they decide on an offer. I think they want to watch a few more games, but that's a junior college name that we now really kind of know of that Alabama's looking at. So Chester Graves is a JUCO guy to kind of watch out for. High school wise, Jaquez Sorrells out of Largo High School. Alabama really likes him a lot. I actually thought he was going to commit in August, but decided to hold off a little bit. Obviously, Alabama's still trying to, they would love to flip a guy like Nathan Pickering, four-star defensive lineman out of Mississippi who visited Alabama 2 weekends ago. Was thought to be coming back in this weekend, but doesn't look like he's going to make the trip. But we'll probably see him back in Tuscaloosa a few more times before he signs his letter of intent. Obviously, Ishmael Sopsher, a big target for Alabama still. There's some other guys that are still out there, and we'll see who they end up getting on campus for visits over the course of the next few months. But those are some of the key names to kind of watch. Would I take Wan'Dale Robinson over Keelan Robinson? Oh man, that's a tough question. Keelan is Keelan reminds me a lot of Josh Jacobs. Now Wan'Dale, reminds me a lot of Jalen Waddle. Two different type of guys, but we may end up seeing a situation where, let's say Trey Sanders ends up not going to Alabama. Now, I don't think that's the case. I think Trey will end up going, but we may see Alabama end up taking two more wide receivers instead of another running back if that's the case. I think that's a possibility. I'm not saying that's definitely set in stone, but I think that we could possibly see two more wide receivers in the class if Alabama doesn't get a running back. Let's see here. I'm going to look at just a couple more questions, and then I'm going to get out of here. We were just going to do a quick little update on the weekend, so you guys know what's all going down, and you guys need to be sure to pay attention to BamaInsider.com throughout the whole weekend, because we're going to be posting updates, all weekend long about all the top kids that are coming in, and hopefully we'll know on Saturday who actually shows up. A lot of times we don't know until Sunday who was there, but hopefully on Saturday we'll know who actually arrives, and we'll be able to update all you guys on everything on the Bama Insider recruiting board. Let's see. Looks like most of the questions are pretty much done. I got a lot of repeats. I think I've answered most of the questions. I'm just scrolling through to make sure that I haven't missed anything. I did see one guy post that Dent is a special talent. That's Akeem Dent, the Florida State commitment. A lot of rumors back in the summer that he was on the verge of flipping to Alabama, and you kept hearing that on message boards and stuff like that. And I had actually spent some time with him at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge. And really, when that stuff was really peaking about him potentially flipping to Alabama, and I never got that vibe regarding him flipping to Alabama. Alabama would love to get him on campus for a visit, but in terms of him flipping, long way to go there. I do think that in terms of defensive back wise, Alabama's best shot is Noah Pola-Gates out of Arizona. Let's see. Are there more kickers that we're interested in? I don't think so. I think Alabama is. I think they're set at having the number one kicker in the country committed to them from Hoover High School. So I don't think. I definitely don't think that we will. We'll see any more kickers offered in this year's recruiting class. Let's see. Could we flip Dylan Wright's commitment? Talking about Dylan Wright, the Texas commitment. 4-star wide receiver out of Texas. Alabama would love to get him. I mean, they liked him a lot. I mentioned him a lot on the Bama Insider board. They were really hoping to get him on campus during you know what? Dylan Wright. I think we're talking about another kid. I'm thinking of Demarion Houston, who's committed to Texas. Dylan Wright's committed to Texas A&M. I am brain fart, guys. Sorry about that. Could we flip Dylan Wright? Probably not. I don't see him flipping from A&M. Do you think Jameson Williams commits? I do think he commits, but I don't know where he commits to. He will make a commitment at some point, whether that's Alabama or Ohio State. It remains to be seen. Alabama does really like him a lot. Jameson Williams is having a fantastic senior season. Certainly a guy that is high on Alabama's recruiting board. If he can hold off and wait until he takes that official visit to Alabama for the Missouri game, I think Alabama's got a chance. But if he goes ahead and decides within the next week or two, we're probably going to see him go ahead and commit to Ohio State. Was John Mechie the top wide receiver on Alabama's board? I'm not in the Alabama recruiting office, so I can't really look at the board and say, yep, Mechie's the number one guy on their board, but he was certainly one of the top guys on the board, or they wouldn't have taken a commitment from him. There were other guys out there that are ranked higher than Mechie that they did not accept. They would not have accepted commitments from. So he was certainly pretty high on Alabama's recruiting board, no doubt. What about Fatui Tuatele? If I spelled that right, I think you got that pretty good out of St. Louis High School. Could we land him? He was one of those guys that we felt early on that would end up in Alabama's class and still might, but I think he's down the board a little bit. Alabama's just done really well recruiting on the defensive line. And you look at Alabama's defensive line commitments. I mean, it is just stacked with Byron Young, Justin Eboji, DJ Dell, Antonio Alfano. I mean, those are four just absolute studs on the defensive line in Alabama's class, all guys who are in the Rivals 250. So, we'll see what happens. But, obviously there's some other big-time guys that are out there like Sopsher and Jaquez Sorrells and Ty Robinson, DeMarvin Lill, Nathan Pickering. Of course, guys some guys who are committed that they're still trying to flip. But yeah, I think he's probably down the board just a little bit right now. But I do think that Alabama's still maintaining communication. I would be shocked if he didn't come in for an official visit. But I think right now Alabama's kind of really zoned in on some other guys. Will Bama push for Demoy Kennedy in 2020? Demoy Kennedy is a Auburn linebacker commitment from Theodore High School. Obviously, Alabama's had some success with players from Theodore, C.J. Mosley, Jamie Mosley. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he was going to make it to Tuscaloosa a couple weeks ago for the Arkansas State game. He's coming in town for he's actually coming in town this weekend for the game. We'll see if he makes it. But yeah, I mean, Alabama likes him, and we'll keep an eye on him and see if what his interest level in Alabama is. What position should Alabama focus the most on this year? Well, rounding out the rest of the recruiting class, I mean, defensive line was so important this year, and I think and safety. I think they've really met their needs at both of those positions. Now, I do think they need to close very strong at inside linebacker. That's just a huge position for them right now. And if they can get Nakobe Dean or Henry Tolatola, or perhaps even both those guys, I think it's it would be a home run for them, because they definitely need inside linebacker help. Do I think Alfano earns 5-star status? I think he's on his way. Obviously, me being in Alabama, him being in New Jersey, it's hard for me to say he's going to be a 5-star, because I don't do those rankings at all, and I can't even call somebody and say, "Hey, we got to move this guy to a 5-star," because it would just look like I'm just some Alabama reporter wanting an Alabama commitment moved up to 5-star. So I can't even do that kind of stuff. But watching his film, I mean, he's having one heck of a senior season. We saw 2 weeks ago he went up against a Notre Dame commitment who's actually rated higher than him in the Rivals 100. I can't think of the kid's name, but he had 14 tackles, including 7 tackles for loss, going up against that guy. So, that says a lot. I think he'll definitely move up in the rankings. And then probably, you watch these guys in these All-American games at the end of the season, how they perform, not just in the All-American game, but at practice every day, every single day. And our team is, our Rivals team is at all the practices. They watch these kids. They know everything about them. So they'll be keeping a very close eye on him. So I think there's definitely a chance that he can move up to 5 stars. Let's see. Can we flip Dax Hill from UM? It's going to be tough. I think I definitely think with him making a commitment just now, it's during the season. I think he's kind of done his homework on all these teams. He's already taken his official visit to Alabama. So he won't be, unless he decides to come back for a visit for a game, it's going to be extremely tough for him to do. What game am I going to tonight? Paul, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be going to a game this evening. This may be an off night for me. We got some stuff going on this evening that I don't think I'm gonna be able to go to a game. Mater Day versus IMG is tonight. Any players that we should check in on? Oh yeah. There's no doubt. Definitely watch that game. The IMG Academy is absolutely stocked with talent. You're going to see some guys that Alabama's very high on. Trey Sanders in the backfield. Watch Evan Neal, the offensive tackle for IMG. I think Alabama's got a really good chance to land his commitment. Just look for the biggest player on the field. I mean, he's 6'8", 350 pounds. Won't be hard to miss. So look for him. I think he's got a good chance to be in Alabama's class. All right, guys, that's it for me today. I just wanted to catch up with all you guys, let you know about the weekend. So be sure to stay tuned to BamaInsider.com. We're going to have all the recruiting scoop on there from the weekend. Tony and Kyle have all the stuff from football, from the team coverage from the game. So be sure to check all that out. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, whether you're traveling down to Tuscaloosa or you're just watching the game from home. Just have fun, and we'll check with all you guys next week. Thanks.